Welcome back, everybody, to the Collector Series on WTC TV. I haven't done one of these in a while, so it's exciting to get back to this. And today we're with a gentleman that is long overdue to be on this show. Definitely one of the more significant contributors to our wrestling card hobby, the one and only Mr. Wrestling Card Inc., Brian Biggs. Welcome, sir.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on, and thank you for that
Well,
introduction. And
it's nice that we finally get a chance to meet.
absolutely.
This is the gentleman that got me sorted out on my Rax roast beef. I'm still not completely done, but you helped me get a good chunk of the way there after shit,
Thank
15, 20 years of trying. Um, the other day you turned me on to a Booker T WCW autograph. So in
Sure.
my book, anybody who even knows that the Booker T WCW autograph is a thing and knows what a Rax roast beef card is in a rarefied air, small group of people. So let's get right into it, Brian.
Sure.
Let's start with your history in the collectible space. How did you get into what you do?
Yeah. I've been collecting since about 1985. When I started off, I was collecting, of course, regular sports cards. Baseball was the main one starting off. Uh, in the 90s, collected baseball, basketball, football, and kind of put that on hold a little bit in the early 2000s. I got married, had kids, and kind of your hobby goes to the back burner a little bit. And I probably picked back up in the probably like 2015, 2016. Got my cards back out, started doing a little bit with them, and really, really worked on my collection. I started really focusing on signed cards. And again, we're still talking baseball, basketball, football. I was collecting, signed
So
rookie
no wrestling at
cards.
this point?
At that point, there was no wrestling
Okay.
involved. Yeah, it was just baseball, basketball, football, mainly rookie cards. I mean, I was Wayne Gretzky signed rookie,
Yeah.
Bobby Orr. I had hockey. I had basically kind of just rookies that were autographs. And
I don't
I
mean to
think,
interrupt, but being in
yeah,
Toronto, Wayne Gretzky cards in '79 when that set came out and I was in grade 8 or 9, we used to throw them around. They were in our bicycle spokes, for God's sakes. And when I started my first business, I had probably four of them,
oh,
and
wow.
I sold them all to get some startup capital, having no
Sure.
clue about anything. And the guy raped me. He took everything I had. But you know what I kept? I had a set of 85 tops wrestling, and I said, you know what? I'm going to keep these because I like wrestling, and I
Sure.
got rid of them anyway. So yeah, every time I hear the Wayne Gretzky rookie and I see it come up, there's a little pinch that I get in my heart. Anyways, carry on.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so mid 2015, 2016, I kind of got back into it, got my cards back out. I really had a lot of what we called the junk wax cards. Everybody knows, the 80s and 90s. But I had some inserts, stuff like that from those time frames. And then kind of started moving that stuff away and collecting the signed rookies, all the vintage, back in the 50s and 60s baseball, basketball, and stuff like that. Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Bill Russell had all those signed rookies.
Big names.
Yeah, big names. That's kind of what I focused on. Then I went, and I've always been a wrestling fan. I've always kind of watched wrestling. I grew up, I'm in Arkansas. I grew up watching Memphis wrestling,
Hmm.
really, really great wrestling. Jerry Lawler and all those guys back from the 80s and 90s. And so I'd always watch that. On the weekends, I would go to my grandparents' house, and they were big wrestling fans. My grandma, my grandpa, my uncles, they all lived there. And so, like Friday night, we would watch, we had a satellite dish, and we would watch on Friday night WCCW wrestling out of Texas.
Right.
We saw the Von Erichs and we saw Abdullah the Butcher and all those guys. And then on Saturday morning, we would watch Memphis wrestling.
Wow.
And then on Saturday evening, we would watch WCW. And then on Sunday morning, we would watch WWF. So in the week, like every other weekend when I went to my grandparents, I was seeing four different wrestling promotions. And, it was really, really, fun and I loved it. And so fast forward to about 2019, Jerry Lawler was having his 50th year, I believe, in wrestling, and he had a big event in Dyersburg, Tennessee, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from where I live. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go. I wanted to go watch the wrestling. I hadn't watched wrestling like live in a while. I'd watched it on TV and stuff,
Right.
but I hadn't been to a live event. And so I thought that would be like a kind of a monumental thing for me to go do. And my son was young at the time, which he has no interest in wrestling or cards anyway, but he
Not
and I
yet.
went. he and I went, he'll get them all one day, you know, or whatever, but he and I went to the wrestling and I looked and, or was going to go and, I looked to see who all the guests were going to be. And so there was Candy Devine and there was Jimmy Hart and there was Jim Ross and there was Dory Funk and Bill Dundee and Tony Atlas. And so I started looking, I was collecting these signed baseball, basketball, football cards. I said, so let me go find these guys' cards and I'll get some of those signed. So I went and got some 82 Wrestling All-Stars. And at that event, I got 6 cards signed. And that's kind of what really kicked off my wrestling. It wasn't like when I really got started and really moved all into wrestling, but that's the 6 cards there that I first had signed. Um, were the first ones that really were in my wrestling collection. And so a couple years goes by, I stuck those guys away. A couple years go by, and you know we got to around COVID time, and I started just feeling nostalgic, and I pulled those cards out, and I was looking at them. I thought, you know, my collection at this point is really broad. I had baseball, basketball, football, hockey. And I had Michael Phelps swimming, his SI for kids rookie. I had a Serena Williams SI for kids signed rookie. And so I had to narrow it down. And so one, I loved wrestling. Two, it was nostalgic for me and it took me back to my childhood. Three, I enjoyed going to the events and getting stuff signed. So I said, I'm going to sell all this stuff off. So I sold all my mainstream sports stuff off and put all my focus into wrestling. And so that was around 2021, 2022. So since then, uh, that's all I collect now is rare wrestling cards. I have a few promos and things like that, and some of my friends like Danny Andrews always tells me to, hey, you got to get into promos. You got to get into promos, and I love promos. And don't get me wrong, but cards is I started in sports cards in '85, and cards is where my passion and my heart is, and uh, so since 22, I'd say I'm all in on wrestling and have put together a fairly nice collection
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
stuff and
Do you
a lot of signed cards. So
do you do you play the population game? Or you know you mentioned Danny. Of course, Danny's one of the
sure,
top names in our world, along with David Peck and Rob
sure,
England
yep,
and my
all
buddy
friends of mine.
Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know them well, and you're in that
Oh,
group
yes,
too. Are you sort of fiercely trying to climb that PSA ladder and get your name up the list? I've always thought that was
uh,
a wonderful thing that PSA does, pitching us
sure,
against each other to say, hey, I'm going to do a little bit better than that guy and see what I can do.
sure. I'm on the for the wrestling all stars. I am on the list. I'm in the top 4 on all 3 sets. You know
So
the
you are. So
sign
you're in
set.
there. You're in that boat as well then.
Yes, I am. I'm number 4 on the 82A, number 3 on 82B, and number 4 on 83. And so
Good for you.
always looking to add to that.
And sort
To
of
me, of course,
upgrade.
yeah, get grades, higher grades. To me, I like completion versus, you know, I don't worry as much about the grade. If I get a nice grade, don't get me wrong, that's where the money is. But if I
Yeah.
can have a copy of something, I would rather have a copy than not have a, you know, a
Yeah,
copy.
that's always been my motto
Sure.
is finish the set and don't get too persnickety about how perfect the cards are. Let's get
That's
this
right.
done and on to the next one.
Yep.
Um, let's talk about some of these rarer things because you know
Sure.
you were brought to my attention years ago when I said, "Who's this dude that has a Rex roast beef?" And then all of a sudden you came up with some more of them, and then you know you get into stuff that many of us want, obviously. You know the elite tiers of vintage, harder to find stuff, rarer stuff. You know.
Sure.
What, you know, I don't want you to share your trade secrets, but where are you finding this stuff, brother? Like you quite often you're right in the middle of the mix when it comes to some of these higher name things.
Well, you know, just kind of, I guess, where I live is helpful for some of the
Central, yeah.
regional sets. You know, the Rax roast beef set, you know, was put out in Nashville. So we're close. You know, I found a lot of those cards. I actually purchased one complete set from someone, and then 2 partial sets, and then made a second set. So, and then I had some leftovers that you got from me. You
Yeah.
know,
Now,
going towards that.
do you believe the Rex is the rarest wrestling set of all time?
No, I wouldn't say so. You know, I think that for what my opinion, as right now, the Jerry Lawler 83 regional set
The original
is
one.
one of is a has a lower production run.
Yeah,
Lawler has said somewhere between maybe 100 and 200 sets of those, and then we
right.
know about 1,200 sets of the racks were printed. Um, and those were
It
given
just,
away.
yeah, it's just that not a lot of them survived, so
No, no,
there's this sort of mythology around the racks. For the longest time, I couldn't get them, and if I couldn't get
sure,
something, then it wasn't for lack of trying. Um, but I think that I think that the Rax roast beef has a special place in collectors' hearts. But if you ask me, like I have the only known complete set of 1995 paninis, and it doesn't sort of get into that same discussion
sure.
as the Rax, and it should, because I believe that is
That's
the rarest set of all time. Because
it.
where's
It's
all the rest of them? And they were out there because there's loads and loads of singles, but a complete set, and it's 120 cards. It's not
sure.
30 or whatever it is. But now let's talk about quickly about the Booker T's and those
Yeah.
really rare. I mean, obviously we're talking about the British Bulldog Booker T. None of us have the Ric Flair because we only saw the one that 15 years ago when it
Yep.
came up. And people ask me, how do you know it was real? And I maintain that it was real because I remember looking at it very, very closely, and we just didn't have the technology back then
Sure.
to make a card like today in today's AI world. I can come up with, in fact, there's a guy that does these custom cards, and
Mhm.
they look fantastic. Um,
You
does a
would think
really,
that
really
they're real car. I mean, you would think that they're
absolutely.
something
Absolutely.
100%
So,
out of the
so like
pack.
when all of a sudden the Steve McMichael and the Mike Enos turned
Mhm.
up 3, 4 years ago, I was suspect. I'm like, yeah, right. Like I've never seen these things in all these years. Why now? But they were legit, and
Sure.
it's hard to find. Like even the Rey Mysterios. Tony was the guy that had the brick of them at one point and brought them to the market and got them seeded out. You can't find them anymore. And I've been
Nope.
offered like serious big dough for the Rey Mysterio now, more than Hogan, in fact. And
Wow.
it's just a function, I guess, of rarity is sort of, you said it's interesting you mentioned geography, Brian, because you're right. Where you are sort of gives you, for example, I'm up here in Ontario. I see a lot of Parkhurst from the 50s,
Sure. Sure.
because Rob and I were talking about this once, and they're not all that rare up here in people's
Right.
collections, but down there,
But down
they're
where I'm at, you don't see them. I mean,
no,
didn't see them at all.
no, no. So tell me about the Booker. Is that something you have in your collection, or you just know where to
No,
get it
no,
from?
no. That's one that a friend of mine has, and
Because I know Greg Weiss has a couple,
yeah,
and
Greg has a few. He met Booker and got those
yeah,
signed, and so Greg's got a few. I know of a few others that have surfaced here and there, but yeah, I mean those cards. When you see something like that come up, you have to strike and you have to get it because those kind of cards like that go into people's collections and they
and they stay.
never ever come out. They never come
Well,
out.
that's my problem now at this late date. I'm into five figures, or if I wanted the Bulldog, I'm sure it's that. A buddy of mine in Toronto has the Bulldog, and he paid 9 for it. It used to
Wow.
be a secret, but now, so I can only imagine what he'd be looking for today. The Booker, like let's just say it's a five, six, seven, $8,000 card. For me,
Mhm.
it's like, well, hang on, I have other Booker T autographs, and I can go out and buy
Right.
one for about $40. To spend that kind of bread, like a mortgage payment, two mortgage payments, just to have it on the wall where it rightfully belongs um, it's a never-ending game, and you seem to be in that world of finding these grail pieces almost, Brian, that people have a hard time locating, and you turn up with them periodically. So
Wow.
that's wonderful to see. That leads me to the next thing I want to talk to you about. Let's talk about
Sure.
old autographs versus new autographs,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, with all this Panini stuff and all the tops and the parallels and all this shit that's coming out, we have a boatload of autographs. Like it used to be a thing that there was only a Rouse War Undertaker autographed, and we didn't see
Mhm.
another one for like 25 years. Stone
Right.
Cold Steve Austin was in the first Fleer set as well, then we didn't see another one. But then once they started, once those floodgates opened, now all of a sudden we have them coming out the yin yang. Rocks,
Sure.
Dwayne Johnsons, you name
Mhm.
it, stuff that was rare. You know, I don't mean this in a bad way, but thankfully Randy's gone. You can't sign anything new, you know what I mean?
Right.
So but as long as Taker's around, even Flair's around, Hogan now the tap has been turned off. But my thinking is that an old autograph is always more valuable to the collector than a new autograph. But dollar-wise, that might not be the case. What are your thoughts on the whole sort of schism between old and new in wrestling?
Okay. So for me, with my collection, what I love is an in-person signed card that didn't come out of a pack. I don't collect pack pulled autographs. I have, I think, two in my collection right
We're the
now.
complete opposite on that. I
Yeah,
only have pack pulled, and I don't go get
sure,
them signed after the fact.
sure. So that's I think right now I think in my collection I have two pack pulled autographs is all I have. I have the 94 Undertaker action packed
Yeah,
and I have the 94 Macho Man action
that's
packed.
it.
Both
Yeah,
great cards. And so those were two that I have bought a long time ago and put away. And so those are my only two that I have currently. In the last few years, I have had the Fleer Diva Ink set that I've sold. I put together the set with Kurt Angle, the Devon, and the Bubba Ray, and the Stone
yeah,
Cold from the
yeah.
Fleer set.
Yeah,
Signature moves, I
signature
believe.
moves. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have
yeah. I
most of
put
those
that
as well.
together
And you're
and
right. They
sold.
don't. They never leave. They
No,
never.
no,
Like
they're
when guys like me get those, they we keep them.
you put them up. But for me in my collection, I like it to where, and I really don't like sticker autos. If I want something, if it's going to be something new, it's got to be on card. They touched that card, they put their hand on it, they
Yeah,
signed
yeah,
it. They didn't sign a sticker. Hey, we'll
yeah.
probably love Hulk Hogan. We'll probably see more of his stuff come out in the next 5 years, out of the new top stuff or the new whatever, because he signed stickers.
Yeah,
Those will go into packs.
I believe Leaf has like a rule that goes from here to
Oh,
eternity of Hogan stickers because that's
sure, of
all they
course they
did.
do.
Yeah,
Of course I do. I really, really appreciate what the cards are bringing that are pack pulled autographs, one of ones, one of fives, one of tens, whatever. I can appreciate it. Is it for my collection? No, not for
right.
me, but I do appreciate it. And I understand, that all of us collect what we like. You like pack pulled autographs. I like in-person stuff. And so, it takes it all to make the hobby go around and,
Sure,
and so
sure. Yeah, there's no right answers, but
sure.
just even in looking at the value proposition of some of these things, it's sort of all over. I as you know, I look at this stuff daily and I sort of post
Right.
what things are selling for. And Hogan gets as much new as he does old. Of course,
He does.
the nine wrestling all stars are always going to be sort of the cream of the crop.
Right.
But and even when Tony and I do our next quarterly, you're going to see a lot of ten figure, $10,000 plus 5 figure sales just from this quarter alone. Like it's quite
Sure.
remarkable. That's all fueled by the superfractors and the autos that you're getting in these new Chrome products.
That's right.
What's your favorite autograph set?
My favorite autograph set that I own, it's probably the Jerry Lawler set. I was able to put that set together with some help from another collector, and then I got as many of those signed as possible. They're all signed by Jerry. I have some of them signed. If there's multiple people on the card, I have them signed by, like, there's a Jerry Lawler and a Ric Flair one. It's dual signed. I have a Jerry
Oh,
Lawler and a Hulk
nice.
Hogan one that's dual signed. So that's one of my favorite sets that I have. In my rack set, I have 9 of the 22 cards
Wow.
are signed. I just was able to get some help from Greg Weiss. He did a little private signing with Haku, and I got my Prince Tonga signed.
Nice.
And so I've got that done. I'm going to actually take it to the National this year, and I'm going to grade it on site. It's not one I want to mail off,
Right, right,
and
right. So
I'd
I'll
rather.
get to make sure that I get to meet you before you
Absolutely.
so I can see it and take a picture with it.
Yeah, yeah, for
What
sure.
is the story on those insofar as PSA with the racks? Is there a bunch of you guys that have complete sets or I guess
Oh,
it's not
I haven't
complete,
looked at the
but
Yeah, I haven't looked at the pop on it,
yeah,
and I don't think they even have an autograph. I have to look. I'm not sure on that, but
right.
I haven't looked at the pop. I think there's only 3 or 4 complete sets on the registry. I have a
Not a
complete
lot.
set, and like I said, I've got 9 of the 22 signed. I don't have the. I think Peck's the only one, maybe with the free French fry
I
card.
was going to say, do you have the French fry one? That seems to be the most
No, I
valuable of the
don't.
lot.
That's the one I would love to find. And I know where I live, there's somebody that's got one in a drawer somewhere, and it's just waiting to pop out
Well,
one of these days.
keep an
And
eye for me because I'm never going to find them all in one go anymore. And now that
sure,
you've helped me, and I've got a couple others, like Tony had a bunch, and he gave me a
yeah,
couple, and I bought a couple of rare ones, and then you helped me with a whole whack of them, which was great. And I appreciate the deal on them.
sure,
They're hard to find, but for me, it's like I can't say that I'm one of the preeminent set collectors and not have that set, and I don't have a complete. And I've been trying
well,
forever.
we'll get you there. Don't worry, we'll get you there. They're out there. We just got to find them.
Well, you're
So,
closer to them than I am, so if
yep,
if you see them, check in with me.
absolutely. So
Brian, let's
those
talk.
two sets. Those two sets are probably some of my favorite autograph sets I have. Of course, the All Stars,
Yeah.
everybody, loves those. So I love those too.
Let's talk about because this came up in a conversation on social media yesterday. The Boyd Pierce photo cards. So we don't speak about those
Yeah,
on our shows that often because they're not really wrestling trading cards. They're more like postcards, but they're not even that. They're just photo cards, and but they're
right.
on cardstock, right? And
They
it just
are.
has a photo and then the guy's name. I've got about 150 of them, but shit, there's got to be close to 1,000 of them.
Oh, there. I mean, I don't think anybody has a
No, I'm
full
not.
list. They still show up. There's
Yes,
new images that people pull
yes,
out, and I guess those were all sold at events at gimmick tables, and
yeah. But there was a
I,
boatload of them because I've got, the wrestling card price guide site has tons of those listed. I don't
Mhm.
know how many Tony's got on his site, but we try and as soon as I see one, I keep that. That's an open table all the time.
Sure.
So to add to that, but well,
I
yeah, so
probably, yeah, I probably have about maybe 5 to 10. And of course, the ones that I probably have, yeah, somewhere in that ballpark, 5 to 10. And I have signed ones that I've gotten signed by
yeah,
people
like
that are still alive.
I've got like a bunch of Sheiks. The original Sheik was a big one
Yeah.
for me up in Toronto. So when I found those once and I bought those and I started piecing them together, but you find anybody that's got a whack of them, they want quite a bit,
Well,
per
they're
card.
hard to find. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they are indeed.
They're not easy to find.
No.
Um, And I do have one signed by Boyd Pierce. He had his own card.
Oh, he
I've
had
got
his own card as well. Now he was just an
yeah.
announcer, or was he a promoter? What was his story?
I think I don't even know. I need that's, to be a wrestling fan. I just saw it and was able to put my hands on it. And I don't even know what I guess he was like a promoter, maybe.
Well, he was
Maybe,
responsible for getting them all done. Someone made those
yeah,
things, and they made more than one copy. Because some you see quite often, and there's other ones that you never see. Like the Von Erich ones are obviously popular,
sure.
and there's a whole whack of those. And just recently, I saw a carry that I'd never before seen.
Wow, that's great. I
You know,
recently picked up, it's been a few months back, but I picked up a Fritz and it was signed,
was
a
it
signed Fritz one. Yep. So,
nice? All right, I want to keep us moving here because I like to
sure.
wrap things up. Before we go, you're launching a new YouTube channel.
I'm going to test the waters with it. I like to talk about older cards. I think there's a lot of guys that talk about newer cards.
Yeah, a lot of them.
And I want to talk about the older cards. I do get a lot of stuff signed. Wrestling Card Inc. INK is my handle. And that's where my love is, and I find my joy in getting cards signed and putting those in my collection. And I want to show people, my ways to. I send a lot of cards off to shows because I can't make every show, and so
Sure.
I have to put my trust in that my cards are going to be handled well, and I package them nicely, and I send pins and talk about stuff like that on the show whenever we get some launched. Talk about older sets, just kind of you know uh, educate people. There's a lot of people that do new stuff, but I think that there's a big market for.
It's a great thing to do because as you know,
Sure.
I try to cover all of it. We'll go back to Hack
Sure.
and Schmidt and
Mhm.
Gotch right up to the latest
Right.
release of Tops last week. But detailed information, like that you would be
That's
able
right.
to provide, there's not a lot there. Like you say,
Sure.
most of the market now is PC collectors that are been turned on to the hobby over the last 5 years that are buying modern product. But there's
Mhm.
us guys, core
Yep.
group of guys that have been around for quite some time, and this is what
And
we do.
if
So
we have to keep the hobby going and to keep the old stuff, relevant, I
yeah,
think that we have to educate the younger crowd so that they know they may not have ever got to see, you know, Big John Studd wrestle, but
correct.
we
Yes,
can educate them on the
yes,
cards that he had and
yes.
things like that. And I think we owe it to the hobby to do that. And
Yeah,
so
trust me,
I'm going to
everybody
try
that's
to.
watching, it's worth it to learn about these old guys, because
Sure.
I still learn from stuff that sort of predated my entry, into late 70s wrestling.
Mhm.
And there's a lot there, like we had a guy in Canada named Whipper Billy Watson that was world champion at one point, and I didn't know that much about him. Just very recently, I read a story on him. It's like, wow, there's just so much information.
Sure.
So that's fantastic, Brian. We're going to wish you well with that, and
Thank you.
I look forward to watching those and to getting that sort of in-depth coverage that we try to do, but we can only touch on the sort of surface of these things. But to
Sure.
get into the tricks of grading, going to card shows, and doing what you've done. You've done an awesome job up until
Well,
now,
thank you.
sort of with your collection and your autographs. Once again, I kind of half apologize for not having you on sooner. Like you should have been
No,
on
no, no.
many, many moons ago. But
Well, thank you.
that's a thing. Sometimes I try and keep an eye on who's doing what, and it's just a matter of catching up with everybody eventually. And speaking of which, we'll definitely catch up at the National.
Absolutely.
I'll be texting you a week out, and we'll be figuring out a place where we can hang out and have a drink. And Ben will be there, and Tony will be there, and I'm sure the four of us are going to have a great time. So before we wrap up, anything else you want to say before we go
No,
today?
thanks again for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. We'll have you back again. Like, I mean, I can see where
Yes,
once you get your show going, we're gonna stumble into sort of areas of the hobby that we can flesh out more, and maybe we can do stuff together
sure,
in that regard, like the way Ben and I have been doing with the tickets, trying to tie it to actual events. But I think that in the last year, me personally, I've gotten into the greater collecting hobby, not just cards. I mean, that's all I have. But
sure.
meeting guys like Ben that do the ticket stubs, that do the robes, meeting guys like you that are signing not just cards, but doing 8x10s and many other things. Tony opening up a retail store and getting into wrestling merchandise and retail all around. It's just opened my eyes to that. Wow, there's just so much cool stuff out there. Like
There
whenever I
is.
see a WWE arcade game, I'm like, wow, I wish I would have had that when I was a kid. All right,
Well, that's
sir.
great.
Everybody, thanks for watching. We've been with Mr. Brian Biggs, Wrestling Card Inc. Keep an eye out for his YouTube show that's coming out. And once you start posting episodes, I'll share the information on that. Thanks everybody for watching. This is Paul Anand from the Wrestling Card Price Guide, and you've been watching the Collector Series on WTC TV.